Hey, what's up, Patreons? Welcome to this week's Q&A. Stay tuned at the end for the drawing for this month's Discord giveaway, but for now, let's jump into the Q&As. First up, Adam W. was talking about the screen comparisons from the Wii Duel review and recommended the color bleed test and checkerboard. I have screenshots of all of those, but I'm not confident in the way that I took them, and a great result of all the hate I got for that video is that I found out there were some flaws with my setup that, to be honest, I would have never, even in a million years, guessed. And one of the things that kind of blew my mind was I ordered some, high-end gold-plated dongles that go from VGA to DVI for my capture card. And a friend of mine told me that not all of those are equal, and you could actually get some skewed results, even though it's just a 1-inch little thing with all pins populated. So I never really would have guessed that. I would think with interference and everything else that it should be fine. So I've gone back and repurchased all cables that go direct to DVI. And in fact, that same person said that could be why some of these videos, if you look in the black area like my shirt or where the bookshelf is back there, he said that some of these videos with the speckles that you see, that could be it because it's hitting bandwidth, which is something that I still haven't figured out, and maybe that's the solution. The terrifying other solution is that the bandwidth of the PCI bus on my motherboard is hitting max. Now this would obviously only be an issue for 1080p for the bandwidth stuff, but the dongle stuff might affect everything else too, so I don't know. I just figured at this point I already recut the whole video to be what I thought was an overview, but I am absolutely planning on going back and recapturing everything. And then before I make it public, I'm going to send first some stills out to some friends to verify that I got everything right, and then use all the tips from people that were nice enough to sit there and walk me through what I did wrong. Use all those tips, make it into a video, even post, maybe put them on Mega Upload or something and have originals ready for people to download. But that won't go live to the public until I'm completely sure that I didn't screw it up. And yeah, I know there were a lot of things like aspect ratios off on the menus, but I mean that's a mistake that I'm embarrassed about, but not ashamed of, because it's a menu. I don't really care. I know that's probably the wrong attitude to have, but when you're like 40 hours into a video, like I got to cut it off at something. I'm only one person. I'm not a duo with somebody helping. There's not a team of people. It's me and all of the friends that are wonderful enough to donate their time and give their opinions, but those people have full-time jobs and hobbies of their own. So, it's really comes down to me deciding what's the most important. But I'm 2 minutes into this rant, and to directly answer your question, I will absolutely be posting color bleed test and checkerboard patterns from different models of Wii's. And I have in my mind, I think, what I want to do for this, but it might take at least a few weeks to get all the parts in. But it'll be a pretty in-depth video comparison of Wii outputs. Firebrand X asked if I had a chance to do thermal tests on the 7.8 SO5 voltage regulators. I have not done any scientific tests. I keep forgetting to buy the thermocouples. I should probably pause this and go buy those now, but the non-scientific tests that I have done. So I would never call this fact. I would never recommend based on this, but the systems that I have installed them in are running perfect. And through basic temperature testing, not the good high quality with the thermal probes and everything, it seems like they run totally fine, the same as the originals. So that's, once again, don't take that as fact, but take that as this is definitely worth looking into. It's not like I plugged them in and they were suddenly 5 times hotter than the other and I burned my hand just going near it. If that was the case, I'd say forget about it, don't even bother. But I've gotten enough proof, as did you apparently, to prove that this is worth doing the extra tests on. So I'll see if I can remember to jump on Amazon or something right now and get a thermocouple test kit. A few people had asked about HDMI switches, and I still haven't gotten around to ordering more and doing testing, mostly because I tend to almost go broke buying stuff for this testing and then not being able to resell it or breaking it or whatever. I've already dropped like $1,000 on the triple bypass stuff, so hopefully I'll be able to sell some of those Genesis consoles to make it back. But the only information I've gotten about HDMI switches, there were a few higher end ones, but I don't want to spend $500 on an HDMI switch. There should be no reason for that. Somebody had suggested an 8-port I/O gear switch that was $135, and somebody else had suggested a 5-port generic brand that was $50. That they said they had good luck with both of them, or different people each said they had good luck with the OSSC, with retro consoles, and with modern consoles. So I'll post links to those if anybody wants to try them, but please know that I did not test those personally. And if you have good success, let us know. Post here, post in the Discord, somewhere, because I'd really like one. I'd especially like an 8x2 or a 10x2 or something, because I think it would be really helpful. But hopefully we'll all discover one, and hopefully it's not $1 million. Clint Collage wanted a quick rundown of the Mr. FPGA project. So I'll be able to give you a very basic rundown, but Smoke Monster's really leading this project and posting some amazing information. So I would absolutely recommend heading over to his Patreon as well. But basically, the Mr. project, MIST, M-I-S-T, and then I guess they added ER to call it Mr. Whatever. But it's based off of an Intel FPGA board called the DE10. And that board's like $130 on Amazon. And if you just simply load up the prepackaged cores on there, you can get some arcade stuff. And it's so far, I haven't done it myself, but it looks like it's pretty damn accurate. But the other part of this project is getting the I/O board, which is, I think, still an evolving thing, but it's essentially something that plugs into that DE10 that allows you to have analog RGB output in the original resolutions and original refresh rates. So if the core is accurate, it should be as perfect of a recreation of the original as could ever be realistically expected. So like, let's for example say that Kevtris one day ports one of his cores over to it. This could be as good of a solution as one of his. Just from a hardware standpoint. Obviously, once again, it all depends on who programs the FPGA stuff. But it's looking really promising. People are adding stuff all the time. People are contributing. Just in the few weeks that I've really been paying close attention to it, there's been some amazing updates, including a controller adapter that adds around 4 nanoseconds of lag. Not milliseconds, nanoseconds. So that's faster than I'm pretty sure any game console can pull the controller port anyway. So beautiful. You have your zero lag controller port solution too. So I would, if you're even slightly interested in these things, I would start following Smoke Monster's work. He does make everything public eventually, but I like to stay in the loop. So one of the million reasons I support his Patreon. But essentially, this project is something where if you buy this kit, every time you get another update, it should be as easy, if not easier, than doing a Raspberry Pi style thing, where you basically just download the pre-configured stuff that does not include intellectual property, and then stick your own ROMs, BIOSes, or whatever else on there to use it. But I think this is going to be essentially important for preserving a lot of these things, and even a lot of the less popular stuff. Like, they have some arcade cores on there for the early 80s stuff that everybody that's tested it, experts in this, have said it's as perfect as one could ask for. So it's a pretty exciting thing. I have my DE10 Nano sitting right there, but there's a list of other stuff I got to get to first. So I'm going to let Smoke Monster take the lead on all of this. I'm going to just be tagging along like an excited kid trying to hang out with the cool kids, and eventually I might do a video on it, but I think Smoke Monster's got this covered, and hopefully when he has time, because I know he's traveling now, but hopefully he'll be able to do some write-ups on the news portion of the site, or maybe even post some guides or anything. So yeah, it's exciting, and I can't wait to start messing around with it. Adam Fowler had a question about the Wii Duel. He wants to know if a smaller installation could be done just to improve the component video output of the Wii and skip the whole HDMI thing, kind of like an RGB bypass or a GC Video Lite installation. I don't think Dan has anything like that planned, and it is my personal opinion, so this isn't fact or anything, but it's my opinion that if you really just care about getting good component video, try to hunt down one of the Wiis that has the better quality output on it. And I mean, it should be good enough. I think the main appeal of the Wii Duel for me, yeah, I absolutely 100% love the crystal clear RGB output. And that probably will be my main way to use it, but the fact that it also has a true digital to digital HDMI output for captures or streaming, I think that is the main selling point. So maybe in the future, after Dan is finished selling as many of these as he can, he might go back and revisit for an analog only version, but I think at the moment it's only going to be the HDMI version. Now, that being said, if it's something that's really important to you, which if it is, that's totally awesome, maybe have the kit installed and tell your modder to just leave off the HDMI port. But I mean, that's, at that point, why not just buy an aftermarket clear case, cut the hole in the aftermarket case, and throw HDMI in just for the heck of it? So, good question, but no, sorry, there isn't just an analog only kit available. Porkchop Express 85 says, I see AV multi-out PCBs on OSH Park, but is there a credible source to purchase casings for them to be used for things like the NES RGB mods? So yeah, there's a few different things. You can get 3D printed designs of them, which I believe Renee from DB Electronics might have those linked on his site next to the PCBs. There should be some on Thingiverse as well. And there's a user called Buffalo Wing, guy's name is Eric, and he makes, they're not quite 3D printed, they're one step higher quality, and they're more expensive, but I mean, you get what you pay for. So depending on the quality you're looking for, you could range between 10 bucks and 40 bucks, and I like them both. I think they both serve their purpose. And while I do really appreciate when consoles look good inside and out, I think something like a port on the back, a 3D printed design is totally cool, especially if you have the patience to maybe sand it a little, paint it, whatever. But yeah, I'll see if I could find links, but if not, definitely look for DB Electronics on his page and just search Thingiverse and you should be able to find some. And I'll try to find, I believe Retrofixes was selling the one from Buffalo Wing. I'll try to get links to all those for you. Next, Martin Lowe said that he's currently using a Raspberry Pi 2 and a JPack to play games on his JAMA arcade machine with the CRT arcade monitor. He said he's ready to upgrade the Pi to a newer model, but's been looking at the Odroid XU4 and wants to know if that could output 240p as well. So to directly answer your question, I've never heard of that, so I'm really not sure. But I do have an opinion on this. I spent, and I'm not exaggerating, I've spent thousands of hours over the years on emulation machines. Remember, I'm a computer nerd by trade, so I enjoy messing with computer stuff, but all of the Windows machines I've built over the years, all of the custom things that I thought were going to be the perfect emulation boxes, the one massive flaw that they all had is it was all tailored to that hardware. So the moment a Raspberry Pi retro gaming solution came out, I think completely changed the game. And that's because I could be here working on mine, somebody else could be working on theirs, and we could share information, and things have moved forward so much quicker as a result globally. So if the Odroid UX4 has a big following, then cool. But if not, I would stick to a product, even if it's not quite as good, I would stick to a product that has a huge following and a huge community behind it. And at the moment, there's a lot of people who are really making some amazing progress with the Raspberry Pi. So that's kind of my opinion. I would stick with I think the 3B, so the Raspberry Pi 3B or 3B Plus. Can't remember which, but there is a newer model available that was just released in 2018. I would stick with that one or the one right before it, because I believe the RGB Pi still has some, there are some Raspberry Pi solutions that have issues with the very latest model, but either way, I mean, they're cheap. You can buy one of each, and as long as you have all of the accessories with it, you're only talking an extra $30. So it's definitely something that I would stick with, unless you have a more, like if you want a more powerful rig and you're not afraid to spend some more money and a lot more time on it, I would go about building a Linux-based, very powerful machine, something with a nice fast CPU and maybe an arcade VGA card or any of the ATI cards that are compatible with some of the Linux distros, because at the very least now it's the same theory that you're working, a bunch of people working on the same goal with the same basic hardware. So I would stick with those. To answer your question, I've never heard of the Odroid, so I'm really sorry. I don't really know if it does 240p, but you might have better luck just sticking with the Raspberry Pi, especially if the solution you currently have is already working great for you. You might not even have to change the software. Most likely you could just pull your micro SD card out, throw in the brand new Raspberry Pi, plug it in, and continue right where you left off. Darkstar7 asked if anybody's had issues with the Insurrection Carby not being picked up by your HDMI switch. I have not. I haven't even powered mine on yet. I've just kind of got it, took some pictures, and I'll be making a video on it soon enough. But I do know that GC Video puts out, I think the audio is a little weird on it. In most TVs, it works fine. Some, you have some issues. And I think it would be the same thing with HDMI switches. Some very picky, finicky switches might not like it. But if that was the case, I would guess that it's not a result of the Carby, it's a result of just GC Video. So maybe clarify if the Carby is not working through a switch, but you have a different GC Video solution that is. That's something that I think you should definitely post and let them know, and maybe just DM them or email them on Twitter. But if no GC Video solution's working, it's kind of just the switch, not the GC Video. Cameron McCown posted and asked about the Atari Jaguar Kitty Box. This is something I covered on the Roundup about a year ago, I think, but it's just an analog to digital converter that's designed specifically for the Atari Jaguar. So this is designed for somebody who, if you only care about having your Jaguar output HDMI. So let's say you have like the high def NES, you have the Ultra HDMI, you have the Wii Duel, and then maybe you bought like the Super NT, and now you just have your Jaguar left. Yeah, I think this would be a good solution. As far as I know, this is not some generic converter thrown in a box. This is an analog to digital converter that's been tuned and tweaked directly for the Jaguar signals. So kind of like what you would get if you put it through an OSSC and tweaked it for the Jaguar. So in that scenario, it seems to be a good device. But don't forget that whenever you have an analog to digital conversion, it's essentially the same as an OSSC. So if you have any other RGB consoles at all, even a second, just two, I would suggest getting an OSSC and having both of those go into that rather than one solution, one analog to digital solution for each console. If it was digital to digital, that would be different because now you're pulling the signals raw with no chance of any interference added. But this is not an insult at all to the product whatsoever. I'm just kind of making sure I give both sides of it, where this thing shines and where there might be a better alternative. One warning though, and I'm going to try to say this as nice as I possibly can, but the person who's in charge of most of these products is very rude. So if you have interactions, if you need support or anything, just take a deep breath, expect it, it's going to come, and then when it hits, just ignore the rudeness and keep going. I've had many conversations with this guy, and whenever I just proceed that way, everything's very cool. I even asked him straight up one time, how come every correspondence I've ever seen you do, you have to be rude? And he just ignored it and kept going on with the conversation. So, I have no problems with the guy. I'm a very honest and straightforward warning that be prepared for some interesting emails if you have any questions about that thing. But as far as I could tell, it's a great device if that's the perfect solution for you. I've just found that in most cases, it's better to just grab an OSSC and have maybe even a switch, so now you're all set. Or don't forget, if you only have two consoles, you could maybe get the RGB SCART cable for the Jaguar and maybe the HD Retrovision cables for like a Genesis, and now you could use the OSSC as a switch as well. Just saying. But hopefully that answered the question good enough. Or I guess that wasn't a question. Hopefully it addressed the post. So before I do the mid-month Discord giveaway, there is a bit of an update to Patreon's customer support. After I emailed them and got a response, about 2 weeks later, somebody who signed their name as Max said, hey, we noticed you're doing giveaways. Please stop. Please delete the post right away. So I emailed them back and said, hey, check your records. I already emailed you about this. Here's how I'm doing it. Here's what I'm doing. If you would like me to stop, please just be very specific on which posts are against the terms of service that you already spelled out for me. And also, is there a better way to contact you? Because there's usually many days before I get a response. So 3 days later, Max responds with, never mind, everything looks like you're under the terms of service. So I have zero trust and zero faith in Patreon. If you ever go to log in one day and my account's gone, it's not me. And I really hope one day I don't just go to check in and have my whole Patreon account suspended because of those people. I think their customer service is awful. And while I've enjoyed the Patreon experience and especially enjoyed all the interaction with the Patreon supporters, I have nothing good to say about their customer service team at all. Nothing. So on a more positive note, here is this month's mid-month Discord giveaway. This is for a My Life in Gaming sealed Night Trap documentary, not the game, a documentary, on Blu-ray, and for a bunch of My Life in Gaming stickers. When they were here visiting, they asked that I use it as one of the giveaways, just to say thank you, which I thought that was very nice of them. So here we go. I have all of the names from everybody that had posted down below. And I didn't bother getting rid of all the ads this time, so sorry, looks a little less professional, but Nick Furlow. All right, well, congratulations, Nick. If I don't hear from you within a few days, I'll email you, but I do like it when people kind of discover this on their own and hear their name pop up in the spin wheel. So congrats, Nick. Hopefully you'll hear this and I will hear from you. And if not, I'll just contact you in a few days, and hopefully we'll have another fun one of these next month. Well, that's it for this week's Q&A. For any newcomers, please remember to post your questions on the Patreon post of this video, not on YouTube. I do release these a month after they air to the Patreons for the public, but the comments are off on the YouTube videos because this is really just my way of trying to say thank you and give back to all the amazing Patreon supporters that I have. So I try to keep everything on the Patreon page just to have everything in that one place. But as always, thank you so much for your support. I hope to have another cool and fun Q&A next week. I hope to have more mid-month giveaways. I'm not able to do them every month, but I think it's pretty fun to have a Discord giveaway every month. And I'll see you guys next time.